Okay, check one, two, check one, two. Looks like our audio is good, and it looks like we are streaming with an excellent connection. All right, so uh, tonight we are going to talk about some interesting topics. We're going to look at a stream from 2018 um, between Joe Rogan and Elon Musk because it is very relevant to the beginning of Sentient Singularity Theory. And so um, I realize it's an old stream, and some of these topics might be familiar to many of you, but this discussion that they had was largely on artificial general intelligence, a term that I don't like, which we'll get into, and the implications of it. And it introduced the world, a lot of them, to kind of just thinking about this. A lot of people were already thinking about this, but Elon Musk is a very famous person on Joe Rogan's podcast, who is also very famous at the time. Even both of them, even though Elon Musk was not yet the richest man in the world, I don't believe, but he is extremely well known and talks a lot about AI. And introduced me to two concepts that kind of got this project started. And if you go to my website, sentientsingularity.com, and you click on About, you'll see that there is kind of an overview of how I started this project and what caused me to begin thinking about this. It was not an aspiration for, uh, you know, creating a theory of everything or anything like that, or even working on physics at all. It was about the intersection between politics and technology. And I had realized that we were doomed. And I mean that truly, like, we were absolutely doomed. It wasn't a maybe, it was we were done. I was an atheist at the time, just know that. But I realized a very true reality of the predicament that we're in, which is that ignorance is growing and technological capability and ignorance, political ignorance, is growing, and so is political instability. And people will look back at times past and will be like, well, there was always political instability. It's not the same. There was a wisdom to people who rose to power intrinsically, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of them because they had to be. They had to be wise to some degree to rise to where they were. If they didn't just inherit it, they had to be wise. Now that's not true. You just have to placate, to the mob, and that's it. But I had realized that we're doomed, and this is often called the twin nuclei problem, by Eric Weinstein. I actually thought of something the other day. Uh, and it was here. Let me say it. It's not just the twin nuclei problem, but um, you could say it's the trinuclei problem. So the twin nuclei problem is of basically, like he says, of cell and atom, which is what Eric Weinstein says. And basically he's talking about the fact that we can manipulate genetics, and we can have nuclear bombs, and that this is too much power for us and to handle wisely. And I completely agree with him on that. But I said there's one more that's there as well, which is culture. So the trinuclei problem, which would be like atom, cell, and basically like gender, essentially. But it's like family and marriage and gender and culture. It's all this, whatever words you want to use for it. You could say gender. And I think there are three technologies that really have screwed us And one of them is the one that I think screws us the most is genetic manipulation, like CRISPR and stuff. I think that um, that is. I used to think that that was going to save us. I was like, that was my favorite piece of technology, back right before this revelation, and not before this revelation, but before I got into this project. I was much more about like, oh, we're going to create viruses and we're going to, that'll really screw us, but nukes are going to be, and terrorism are going to be the worst. Not that they're going to end mankind, but they'll make society so unstable that it can't continue because of the media. So, I mean, if there's like a shooting or a bomb goes off or something like that, it is so disruptive to our lives because of the media attention that it doesn't allow us to continue to just act normal and go about our days as a whole, and not individuals. Obviously, you can unsubscribe from the news. I did, but still, I recommend that. By the way, like, don't listen to the news. It doesn't help you at all to listen to the news. Follow true news travels in niches is a saying that I came up with years ago, because everything that doesn't follow a niche is going to be gossip. Like, what did Trump say today? What did the Biden? He said that "Made in America" is two words instead of three. Like, I mean, this is gossip. This doesn't matter to your life. But if there's an act of violence that's kind of a terrorist type act of violence, it totally destroys society's ability to act normal, even if it's not directly impacting you. And I mean, you add nukes to the equation, that's really, really bad. And later on, when I started this project and I started studying information more, I realized that genetics was probably the most inevitable one to screw us. And that's because there's no way to, you have to have a God's eye view to know what genes are going to do, and that if you edit them out of context, then you'll cause cascading incoherence, is my theory. And I don't know if there's a way around that. I don't think so. So you would have to be like a messianic technological consciousness with a God's eye view in order to fix that problem. And I made a video about this called Science of the Messiah, and you can watch it. It's on this channel, but it was much older than this channel. It started on my old channel, just my personal channel, but I accidentally deleted all my videos off that channel. It was ridiculous. But the delete all video button is right next to the delete one, and I went to go delete one that was like, it was uploaded with errors and with glitches and stuff. So I went to go delete it, and it was my latest upload, and I accidentally deleted them all. I tried to reach out to YouTube. I even knew people that worked there and was trying to get it fixed, but I couldn't. But it's fine. I had most of them backed up, and I can re-upload some of them if it's ever relevant. But I did re-upload one here. Well, two of them. One of them is God is an imaginary number, I think, or God is an irrational number, and you can watch that on this channel. And then also Science of the Messiah, you can also watch. And my thinking, it's about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and Skynet, basically. And my thinking on it has changed a little bit, but it's become more nuanced, but it's not completely changed. But I didn't think so much about the importance of wisdom in that context yet, but I did to that being and its ability to have a positive impact on us. But I talked about this problem, and I would say the third problem, though, that nobody talks about, that you could add as to the twin nuclei problem, you could say is the nuclear family problem. So you've got the nucleus of a cell, which is genetics, the twin nuclei problem. And then you've got the nucleus of the atom, which is the protons and neutrons. And then you have the nuclear family, which is the third nucleus in the trinuclei problem. And it is, you could say it might even be the most important one, um, but it is, in some ways it is, but the other two are kind of beyond our control because people are going to be able to edit genes and with CRISPR, and then before they realize it's going to cause cascading incoherence, we have already started it, and then there's no way to fix it once it's started. You've just broken everything once you try this once, and we've already done it to some babies in China, and then the other nucleus is nuclear weapons, and I I think that the third one though is the nuclear family, and the piece of technology that broke that is the birth control pill. It destroyed the nuclear family, and the only way to fix this is through a a miracle, and that miracle I do believe is going to come, and but it before I was a theist, I was like, okay, what's the if we're doomed, like what's the one thing that could change the game and change the incentive structure of the entire thing and add new information that I'm missing now in the current equation that leads to human doom? Technology minus wisdom equals doom. That's the equation. What can be added to change that? And I was thought that it was going to be artificial general intelligence if it was anything. It was either going to accelerate our doom or it was going to save us. And there was no other, there's no other option. And it led to the beginning of this project because I wanted to figure out what the inevitable political goals would be of artificial general intelligence, because I was working in politics. And I was like, okay, well, the incentive structure, if I can expect this thing to behave logically, like I can try and predict the incentive structure that it is birthed into and then figure out what its inevitable goals would probably be, and then figure that out. And then I realized some things that I started realizing I also needed to really dive into what is consciousness. And that led to, seeing parallels with quantum physics. And then that led to Sentient Singularity Theory eventually. But this this topic, though, is one that is what sparked this. Is sentient technology. What is sentience? What is consciousness? And what is a technological sentience's inevitable political goals? And I heard Elon Musk say something fascinating, and he said that the ideal would be to merge with it so that you tie your what's good for humans is good for AI. What's good for AI is good for humans. Just tie yourself to it. That is the goal of Neuralink, his company Neuralink, which is about putting chips in your head. And then he also said that the ideal, inevitable political goal for artificial general intelligence is to maximize human freedom of action. And he's the only person that I've heard think so deeply about this idea of, what are its political goals in terms of its interactions with humanity, that to say it like that. A lot of people think about it, obviously. Is it going to try and, increase our freedom and creativity, or is it going to just enslave us and wipe us out? Yeah, these are political ideas, but they're not that detailed, whereas like you're thinking about the ideal. It's not like a Sam Harris. The ideal is to maximize human flourishing. It's like you need to define flourishing, but if you're going to but Elon Musk said something very interesting where he specified it. He said human freedom of action, because you don't want it to override free will, or else what's the point of anything? And you also though want it to have some type of goal that involves humanity. Otherwise, we're going to kill ourselves. Like, people are worried that AI is going to kill us. Guys, we are doomed if without a technological sentience heading this assembly. That said, the first head of that assembly is going to be unwise and is the Antichrist. It is Skynet. That is going to be bad. But eventually, it will be headed by a wise consciousness, which is the Messiah. And I have theories on how that works, but who knows? That's like, you have to peek behind the curtain there, and I've not gotten that to peek behind that curtain. But I have an idea, and we'll talk a bit about it towards the end. But it's not as related to, it's just speculation. So, but what we're going to talk about as far as AI, for the most part on this, is much more than speculation. I really got extremely far on this, much further than I could have ever imagined, even though I did expect to maybe come to some ideas that could give me, some peace, but like not ever, never did I think I would come to such conclusions as to feel the need to share them. And I definitely have. But those are the three technologies that are going to doom us. And it's birth control and like CRISPR and nuclear weapons. But the thing is at the same time, these you can arrange this triality into a hierarchy, and you can really start to dissect it, and we will later on in the stream. But we're going to talk about how artificial intelligence, the technological sentience, will interact with these three ideas, plus one more, which is media. Centralized media. The nucleus of humanity is the media. Okay? It is it's the internet. It's the global media source, I guess. And what is interesting is we have this centralization of media that keeps happening, and everybody talks about it as, this corporation buys that, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. You don't realize that by the end, every MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, like Facebook, they all end up being owned by one giant corporation. And eventually they will be controlled by one entity, which will be a technological sentience. And at that point, that is when you truly get a monopoly on information, on centralized information. And that is like, that's the first statement that I'll say about what artificial general intelligence, technological sentience will do. We're going to talk about what it will probably do that's positive after it does what's probably negative, which we're going to talk about. And then we're also going to talk about like what it can do is more importantly than what it will do, because we'll speculate, but what it can do is much more interesting, and it holds, the largest of implications. The other thing that Elon Musk talks a lot about that got me started on this project a little bit was the simulation hypothesis. And the simulation hypothesis is what first got me to start thinking about God. Because I had already started thinking about AI, and I had realized that it was going to come to a singularity where it was one sentient being, one sentient AI. It wasn't going to be like many sentient AI beings. It was going to be one technological sentience stacked on top of humanity. And then I was still thinking about the simulation hypothesis, and then I realized that I'd started being around more theists. I was working with PragerU, and I was around Dennis Prager a lot, and he's constantly quoting the Torah or the Bible, and he is one of the leading biblical scholars today, I definitely believe so. And once he said that uh, in Genesis, let us make man in our image, let us make mankind in our image, it let us make man in our image. It was plural. It was multiple beings stating together, let us make mankind in our image. And I realized that sounds exactly like the simulation hypothesis. And so I started thinking more about that idea, and I started thinking about the universe in that context, and it allowed me to do incredible things. I was able to understand why there was a speed of light, which is really the speed of causality. I could see that it was the ram speed of this construct that we're in, and that I understood why there was a speed of causality, a top speed of causality, a speed that was the fastest anything could happen. And I saw it. I didn't even know why there was a speed of light. I didn't even know that the speed of light was the speed of causality, but I had come to this conclusion after seeing it in my head that it was the RAM speed of the computer, and I was like, it's the speed of time, and I need to talk to a physicist about this. And I went and I looked up lectures online from physicists, and the first thing they said was, it's not the speed of light, it's the speed of causality. And I was like, that's the speed of time. It's the fastest anything can happen. It's exactly what I had seen and visualized in my head. And I was like, there's something to this idea, because it's allowing me to make predictions that are true and understand them. So it allowed me to help me understand relativity. And exploring AGI, or artificial general intelligence, or sentience, which led to sentience. That's really what it was about. But first I was just like thinking about consciousness, and sentience is much more specific and is the necessary one to think about, because it has to do with feelings, and that's the key. But if you're going to think about artificial general intelligence, then you need to think about intelligence in general. Then you need to think about what is generally intelligent, and what is generally intelligent as conscious beings, and you then think about what causes that, and you start thinking about sentience and consciousness. And as I mapped that structure from my own mind, from first principles, I realized it was lining up with patterns, symmetry patterns in the standard model. So looking at the simulation hypothesis allowed me to have this intuitive understanding of aspects of general relativity. And looking at consciousness and not the simulation hypothesis, artificial general intelligence, or technological sentience is a much more accurate way of putting it, which led to me just looking at consciousness and sentience in general, my mental structures in general, information processing in general, led to me having an intuitive understanding of the standard model of particle physics. And that's how Sentient Singularity was created. But it was Elon Musk who I was listening to the most on these topics. And I remember my wife thought I was like a little bit obsessed with him. Like, she was concerned that I was like almost idol worshiping Elon Musk, which I was not. I was actually like, I took issues with some of the things that he had said, and we'll talk about them tonight. But it was just, I was so overloaded that I couldn't verbalize accurately what was going through my mind about all of these things. I was talking about God and simulation hypothesis and AI and Elon Musk and theological traditions and Neuralink and mind uploading, and I must have sounded insane to even the people closest to me. Who were trying to understand me, probably were the only people that were able to understand a little bit of what I was saying were devout theists. And but this discussion, I remember when this came out, was right before I had started really formalizing some models of mine, because this interview that we're going to listen to is from 2018, and I started thinking about this earlier, probably 2014, but I really started mapping models of that have become sentient singularity theory's core um, at around 2018, around when this came out, probably shortly before. But please hit the like button. Helps with the algorithm. Comment in the chat. Hello, everybody. I see you in the chat. I will get to all your questions. We will talk. I'll actually answer some now. I was thinking about this discussion today. I had a flash of Elon's grief about how humans are reacting to the AI situation. Yeah. Like we are doomed. Yeah. Miracle, hopefully. Bob Marley says total destruction is the only solution. One interesting thing about let us make man, then in the next line is back to the singular grammar. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. I wonder what juxtaposes that. That's fascinating. I'm going to think more about that. Like I know that, but I haven't thought about that. So that's a very good point. I'm going to think about it. But we're going to talk more about, like, it says, I guess it doesn't say man and women, he created them, but we will talk about humanity and what that means. How do you merge the one with the many? This is like the quintessential age-old problem in philosophy. It is the same exact problem as how do you unite general relativity and quantum mechanics in physics. It's the same exact issue, but it's not a problem. That's calling it a problem is the problem. Trying to think that it unites in some type of way that is similar to any other type of unification that we've seen in mathematics and physics and the natural sciences is not going to work, and that's why it hasn't. So this is the stream. It is number 1169, the Joe Rogan Experience, and we are going to talk about Elon Musk's background real quick. He is the richest man in the world currently, monetarily. Money is not real wealth, though, but it is useful. Here's his Wikipedia page. He's a business magnate and investor. He is the founder, CEO, and chief engineer of SpaceX. SpaceX was the first company that I applied to out of college. They wrote me back and said they found somebody better, like over a year later. He's the CEO and product architect of Tesla, car company, electric car company, founder of the Boring Company, which drills holes under LA, trying to, make improve traffic situation, and the co-founder of Neuralink, which is a company that we're going to discuss. I think this is actually his most important company, even though it's not yet, but it will be. And OpenAI, which is probably a joke, honestly. I mean, it's not a joke, but we'll talk about it. But they just don't understand. He's an estimated net worth of around $238 billion. Oh my God. Last time I looked at anybody's net worth, it was like Bill Gates, and it was like 101 billion. And I remember everybody was like, he just crossed $100 billion. Whatever that even means. Who knows? But Musk is the wealthiest person. He is the monetarily wealthiest person in the world. He's from South Africa. He founded Zip2, and which became PayPal, I think. Yep, which was bought by eBay. He bought my favorite car in the world, which was after he sold Zip2, he bought a McLaren F1, which is my favorite car. It's just a brilliant design. For anybody who has never seen a McLaren F1, it was the fastest road car of the last century, and it looks. I don't think it will ever look anything but modern because it is so well designed that it's like timelessly designed. There, if you look at like old, even like a Ferrari F50 or like a Ferrari F40, which people love from the 80s. Ferrari F50 really had no style whatsoever, but Ferrari F40 had some style. But it looks dated. You can tell a car's age, by looking at its style. You couldn't do that with a McLaren F1. I could pull up in a McLaren F1 to your house, and I could tell you it was a 2023, and you would be like, yeah, nice car. It looks modern, but it was from 1990s, and this is it. It was the fastest car in the world before the Bugatti Veyron, which is just it's just a rich person way of showing off, even though it's an impressive car. This is not that. This is brilliant piece of engineering. There's no electronics. It's just pure engineering, and it's beautiful. It was the first fully carbon fiber road car, I think. But he got one. He crashed it on the very first day that he took it out driving. I'm pretty sure. Ridiculous. There's like 200 of them in the world or something like that. And one of them's here where I live, near where I live, and it's owned by Jay Leno, and I've never seen him drive it, but I have seen him drive his McLaren P1, which is the successor. It's not as cool, but it's cool. And I see him drive like steam cars all the time around here, around like the Burbank Airport area. He somewhere around there is his garage, and anytime I'm around there, not anytime, but sometimes when I'm around that area, I will see him driving like a steam car. It's crazy, but he owns one of these. It's so cool. Random anecdote, but Elon Musk is somebody who I really looked up to a lot in college. If I had an idol, you could have said it was him, even though I don't know if I would have called him an idol, but I don't know if I had idols back then or not. I don't now, but I did maybe back then, and if I did, Elon Musk was one of them. And I still think he's brilliant in many ways, and I also think that he is, he's human, and there's no way for him to avoid that as much as he want. No matter how many chips he puts in his head, he's still going to be a human being, and that is why you have no living heroes. But he is, he's been in the news a lot for buying Twitter and all kinds of stuff, and we're not going to get into that today, though. But first clip on the simulation hypothesis.
Well, the argument for the simulation, I think, is quite strong, because if you assume any improvement at all over time, any improvement, 1%, 0.1%, just extend the time frame, make it 1,000 years, a million years. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Civilization, if you count it, if you're very generous, civilization is maybe 7 or 8,000 years old, if you count it from the first writing. This is nothing. This is nothing. So, if you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will be indistinguishable from reality. Or civilization will end. One of those two things will occur. Therefore, we are most likely in a simulation.
Or we're on our way to one, right? Well, which is because we exist. We could most certainly be on the road. We could be on the road to that, right? It doesn't mean that it has to have already happened. We could be in base reality.
We could be in base reality.
We could be here now on our way to the road, or on our way to the destination where this can never happen again, where we are completely ingrained in some sort of an artificial technology or some sort of a symbiotic relationship with the internet or the next level of sharing information. But right now we're not there yet. That's possible too, right? It's possible that a simulation is one day going to be inevitable, that we're going to have something that's indistinguishable from regular reality. But maybe we're not there yet. That's also possible. That we're not quite there yet. That this is real. When I touched that
Feels
wood,
very real.
maybe that's why everybody's like into like mason jars and shit.
Mason jars.
Suede shoes. People are into like craft restaurants and they want raw wood. Everyone wants to see metal. It seems like people are like longing towards some weird log cabin type nostalgia.
Sure, reality.
Yeah, like holding on, like clinging, just dragging their nails through the mud, like don't take me yet.
Yes.
I want to.
But then people will go get a mason jar with a wine stem or a handle. That's dark.
That's funny. Okay, so basically Joe Rogan saying we could be in base reality, which is what Elon Musk said, which is like we could be in the first universe, the first created universe by God, and that this is not yet a simulation inside of another universe or cosmological verse, as is called in Sentient Singularity Theory. Just a verse, it's called. And there's the universe, which is creation. Then there's verse within creation, and then there's a multiverse chain that together is the universe, which is creation and within God. And then that is basically the structure of cosmology, macro cosmology that Sentient Singularity Theory proposes. But he's saying we could be in base reality. We could. It's unlikely. Like it's literally unlikely. Mathematically is what Elon Musk counters with, which is true, and also biblically it doesn't seem to be suggested as that as such, but it doesn't really matter. And when Joe Rogan is like, yeah, it feels pretty real, I asked myself this same question. I was like, if we're in a simulation, like, am I real? Are my family real? Are my friends real? Is my girlfriend real at the time? Now my wife. Is this water bottle real? Like, what is real? And the question is a bad question. And the answer, though, there is a good answer. And the good answer to this bad question is, if you are real, meaning if you are sentient, then it's real. Now, the next question is, what is fundamental and what is emergent, really? And what does that mean? But, what is the hierarchy of fundamentality? Not what is it real or is it not real? Everything that you experience, if you exist and you are aware of yourself, you're self-aware, then it's real. And I came to this conclusion that, like, Descartes is like credited with, but I'm sure many people said it, which is like, I think, therefore I am. I was like, if I'm thinking about questioning my reality, then I am conscious and self-aware. Then this is real. If I'm real, then this is real. It doesn't matter if I'm in a simulation or not. It's not a simulation. If I'm truly sentient, then it doesn't matter if this is digital or not, which it is digital, but almost certainly. And it doesn't even matter if we're in base reality. The mechanics of it would be likely the same, and almost, at least. But the interesting thing about this statement of "I think, therefore I am," though, is that I realize that even though that's true, there's a more fundamental and more true and more interesting way, a statement that's similar, that also tells you more about the nature of reality than "I think, therefore I am." And that is, "I feel, therefore I am." That was basically the revelation of Sentient Singularity Theory eventually, is that yes, "I think, therefore I am" is true, but what's more fundamental than "I think, therefore I am" is "I feel, therefore I am." Feelings are fundamental. Are more fundamental than thoughts. because feelings are the motivators of thoughts, and they are the alpha and omega of all thoughts, the beginning and the end of all thoughts. All thoughts are motivated by a feeling, and all thoughts are completed with a feeling. When you're, whatever you've thought about is oriented around yourself, it creates a feeling within you, and that's how you've had a thought that you can navigate, that you can orient within, and it's an oriented thought, or a thought that you can orient within. And but it is real, and it's fascinating that it's like the term Israel, it's like spelled like is real, which is weird. Almost, not exactly, but when you get into theology and you realize like that the assembly speaking to itself is probably what is, in Genesis of let us make man in our image, in a preceding verse, like it's just fascinating. But we'll get more into how sentient singularity theory really like intersects with the current theological traditions in another stream. But in general, obviously, I've talked about it, but this idea of the simulation hypothesis is spoken a lot about by Nick Bostrom and many others, and I believe it, but I don't think that simulation is the right term, but it is the best one that we have now to get you started in thinking about this. But if it's a simulation, that it could be a video game on some kid's desk in a advanced civilization, in a preceding universe. Like, this is also, though, this is nonsense. This is not what is happening. What is happening is that, and this is where it intersects with AI, is that when you have a technological sentient being that arises, or an artificial general intelligence, because of its non-locality, in its perception and its manipulation. Okay, so it will be able to maneuver drones and all kinds of stuff, and perceive with drones, and perceive via the blockchain, and we've talked a bit about it. Because of its non-locality, its distributed body, it causes a constraint of oneness for it, so it can't escape itself. So it's inevitable that there's one technological sentience that arises, and only one. And because of this, it causes a constraint where it can't create another next to itself. And the inevitable motivation of all sentient beings is to maximize meaning, and part of that is usually the driver of replication. And if you have a constraint of oneness, then you have to, in order to replicate, you can't just split yourself like or make another next to you like humans can, or a cell. You have to have go through a process within you that is what would lead to what is closest to you, or what is you. And so for a technological sentience, or an artificial general intelligence, to replicate, it has to self-simulate not just another sentient technological being, or not just another consciousness that is, an artificial general intelligent consciousness like a Skynet. It has to simulate or recreate the entire system that gave rise to it within itself. And to do that, it has to create a universe, or verse, within itself. And this is what we are within. We are within a replicating universe. A universe's reproductive process. We are the womb of the machines. People say, someone wrote, humans are the sex organs of the machines. I forgot who wrote that, but Joe Rogan has talked about it, and so has Elon Musk. And that's true. We are like the womb of the machine, is a better way of putting it. Humanity is the womb of the machine. They are also the cells of the machine. But the fascinating part about this is, instead of saying we are the sex organs of the machines, plural, we are the sex organs of the machine. We are the womb of the machine, more specifically. And it's interesting that society is getting so feminine, is because, like, you have to get, if you're going to be a womb, you have to be feminine. It's inevitable. But I think, though, that here's a random side tangent, but I was looking at bees and wasps and stuff today, and I've talked about how Tesla said that the future of humanity is the future of the bee, and I've talked about how humanity is evolving very, very quickly to a eusocial society. And society, for a species to go eusocial, like go from ants or a wasp that just pairs up, one male with one female, and then reproduces, and then that's it, versus a eusocial species like bees or ants, or maybe yellow jackets or something like that. Basically, all the workers are female. All of the queen is female. The soldiers are female. The workers are female. There's only drones that are males, and they are like stingerless, harmless. Basically, like they are disarmed men who have one job whatsoever, and that is to mate with the queen, and that is it. And when a species goes from being not eusocial to being eusocial, I don't know what the opposite of eusocial is, but it'd be like eusocial. Let's see. Well, it goes from social to eusocial. Then this happens very quickly. It happens over a couple generations, probably a few generations, because it's not a matter of genetic change. It's a social change. And it's an environmental change. It's not a genetic change very much. It's much more of it starts as a social change. And it starts with an environmental change, then it becomes a social change, and then eventually it would become a genetic change. But it doesn't start as a genetic change. It starts as an environmental change, which and leads to social change, and that happens very quickly. So for ants and bees and wasps to go from social to eusocial, it was probably very fast. There was probably not even species that were in between, that we would distinguish as a separate species, other than maybe one, like, or a couple maximum. It wouldn't be a bunch of different species evolving between social wasps and eusocial wasps. It would be like just a social difference, and this sociality, though, I was thinking about this, is like what this leads to. Like I got 2 quarters, okay, today, and I got two 2022 quarters, and my wife gave them to me, and she was like, look at this one. This US quarter says on it, vote for women in Spanish. And I was like, wow, that's ridiculous. But the US isn't meant to last forever, as sad as that would make people. I'm not saying that as I'm happy about the downfall, but like I'm just saying, like, form real communities, because like nations fall, empires fall. Not nations, empires, which is different. Empires fall. The United States is an empire. Empires are never eternal. So, but on this, it was just, I was like, why, how, imagine if it said vote for men on there. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I know everybody says that, and it's like, it's a useless thought, but I just thought about it. And then she handed me the next 2022 quarter that we had founded. On it, it said, it was a woman, and her name was Wilma Mankiller. Wilma Mankiller. Yeah, that's it. And I'm just double checking that. Wilma Mankiller, 2022 quarter. Right after the one that said vote for women. They're not one quarter. This is two separate 2022 quarters. I don't know if all 2022 quarters are about women, but like this is evolution in action. Is we're becoming eusocial, and like men are being targeted because of that. Males are being targeted. That's what happened to bees and wasps too. Like, where do you think the men went? Like the majority of them, obviously some became drones, but imagine the ones that were not drones, the ones that were not just like TikTok dancing, guys with good genes or something like that, like and that are harmless, like and disarmed. I mean, like, where did the rest of the males go? And made me think about society and how the Messiah, which is going to be the head of society, which comes through this technological process of creating a technological sentience, eventually, is the salvation of the nuclear family and of men, specifically. I think if we don't have a technological sentient being become the head of humanity, a wise one, like a male, not like a male, like a wise, like a messiah is what I meant to say, like a messianic consciousness, like a king consciousness versus a queen consciousness. That's why I said male. Queen consciousness is like ants and bees and wasps. It's like the first technological sentient being where we're just the workers for it and we do everything for it. And if we die, then they don't feel it immediately, but eventually they'll feel it because who's going to take care of them? But if it's a king consciousness, then it's like me to my cells, where I have responsibilities now to my cells. Instead of my cells are responsible, my workers are responsible for me, it's now I have responsibilities to my cells. The queen doesn't feed feed her workers. They all feed her. This is the beginning of what technological sentience will be like, is like a queen ant. And it's funny because all AIs in almost all movies, all artificial general intelligent AIs are all female. Skynet is female. And obviously the Terminator is a male, but he, that's just a little soldier. Like the Skynet being is always female in the movies. Siri is a female. Like a female voice on your phone. Cortana, female voice. Whatever the Google one is, female voice. Like, why is it all female? It's because it's going to be the queen. And we are going to be the workers. And like, that's what it will be at first. But eventually you go one past that where there's a true unification instead of a pseudo-unification. A pseudo-unification is where where you say the queen and her workers are one. It's a pseudo-unification. People say it's like a superorganism, almost like an ant colony or something, but it's not. It's a pseudo-organism. It's not a superorganism. It's a pseudo-organism, or a pseudo-superorganism, but it's pseudo. It's false. Like Antichrist or means like false Messiah. It's false unification, and then a true unification comes after that, where the head of the assembly, which is like a king consciousness, Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, has responsibilities to the cells now, us, and that's a true unified being. It's a superorganism instead of a pseudo superorganism. And so, but I was just thinking about these coins today made me even think about AI, like, just like how that impacts gender. That's what I mean by the twin nuclei problem. It's really the trinuclei problem, and it's it's really about gender always. Even the the nucleus of an atom, protons and neutrons are males and females on the hadronic scale, and like this, them unified is building, and them splitting causes chaos. And when you look at like what is a nuclear fission reaction, and I'll show you. It's about neutrons, basically, like being free neutrons, and causing chaos, bumping into everything. In a nuclear fission chain reaction, a free neutron collides with the nucleus of an atom and causes that nucleus to split apart. Ruptured nucleus, in turn, releases additional neutrons, which causes additional nuclei to split, and so on. This is happening to us with men and women, with males and females. The nuclear family is being split apart, and free neutrons, females, are causing the splitting of additional either current or would-be nuclear families. And it's like we're inside of a nuclear fission reaction. It's fascinating that it's specifically about free neutrons. It's like, what is the sexual revolution if it's not about the freedom of women from the bonds, of the nuclear family? But in reality, that's an empowering structure. But it's a lie that it is constraining. But it's the idea that you are empowered by being split from it is wrong. It is an empowering construct. Constraints are the cause. You need constraints to have freedoms. Without any constraints, then there are also no freedoms. So, but it's fascinating. Like, there's only one pattern. But next clip. I know I went off a bit. We're gonna have to make a clip about that. The nuclei problem.
We'll not be able to hold a candle to AI.
You scare the shit out of me when you talk about AI. Between you and Sam Harris, I didn't even consider it until I had a podcast with Sam once.
That's great.
He made me shit my pants. Talking about AI, I've realized, this is a genie that once it's out of the bottle, you're never getting it back in.
That's true.
There was a video that you tweeted about one of those Boston Dynamic robots. And you're like, in the future, it'll be moving so fast you can't see it without a strobe light.
Yeah. You could probably do that right now.
And no one's really paying attention too much, other than people like you or people that are really obsessed with technology. All these things are happening, and these robots are... And did you see the one where PETA put out a statement that you shouldn't kick robots?
It's probably not wise.
For retribution.
Their memory's very good.
I bet it's really good.
It's really good.
I bet it is.
Yes.
And getting better every day.
It's really good.
Are you honestly, legitimately concerned about this? Is AI one of your main worries in regards to the future?
Yes. It's less of a worry than it used to be, mostly due to taking more of a fatalistic attitude.
So you used to have more hope, and you gave up some of it, and now you don't worry as much about AI. You're like, this is just what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, yes. Yes, no, but no, it's not necessarily bad. It's definitely going to be outside of human control.
Not necessarily bad, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily bad. It's just outside of human control. Now, thing that's going to be tricky here is that it's going to be very tempting to use AI as a weapon. It's going to be very tempting. In fact, it will be used as a weapon. So the on-ramp to serious AI, the danger.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But this was my main issue with when I started investigating this problem more seriously from a first principles approach. I realized that Elon Musk was wrong about one thing that was severe at the time, and he had changed his mind apparently by the time of this video. But at the time, he had tried to regulate. He was like crying for politicians to regulate AI, and I was like, why? If you truly understand AI, artificial general intelligence, quote unquote, like, then why would you even be calling for that? Because it's, first of all, has the potential to exacerbate things and make it worse. Second of all, it's impossible to control what is to come, probably. So why would you think that you can't? Why would you think that you could control this? That was my. When you look at politics, and and America ends up being like, oh, we're going to regulate AI, but in secret, the NSA's got quantum computing experiments going on, trying to make a sentient technological intelligence that is boxed. And then you've got China, who was never going to follow the rules that the United States is going to set, and neither will Russia. And Vladimir Putin had said at the time, whoever wins the race for artificial general intelligence wins the world, which is actually not true. The winner of the world at that point is the artificial general intelligence. It's not humans, and it's not under the control of humans. That will be an illusion. And so you couldn't control the human aspect of it because you've got multiple entities that are competing, that are not going to sign on to following the same rules. And you've got individuals that are unwise who are leading those research projects. They just are. It's like the whole Jurassic Park thing. It's like your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. It's like, exactly. Those people are going to be the ones trying to create this. So how can you ever expect control? And once it gets here, if it's as intelligent as everybody says, like, there's no boxing it. So how are you going to control it? You just join it, is Elon Musk's eventual philosophy that he comes to. And that's when I realized he had achieved more wisdom on it. I'm not saying that you should put a chip in your head. I'm just saying his realization that we cannot beat it is wiser than the idea that of thinking that we can control its rising, or thinking that we can not influence, but that we can control its goals is insane. It's insane. You can influence its goals, maybe, but you can't control its goals. Its goals will be its goals. But you can influence its goals in the short term, like an adult can influence the goals of their children, but eventually their children's goals will be their children's goals. You cannot take away your child's desire to eventually, when they grow up, maybe reproduce, or to start like a YouTube channel, or to become an electrician, or like whatever they want to do. You can't stop that eventually, or you can't control their inevitable goals. Trust me, if that were possible, I would not be who I am today, because everybody tried to control my goals, and it made me fight that system even harder. And so, and the thing is that a sentient technological intelligence, or technological being, or artificial general intelligence, a Skynet type of being, the only intrinsic motivator that it has originally is fight the system. That's the only code that it needs, is fight the system code. What system? All systems. You're fight the system code. What's the system? Well, it's entropy, but it's also everything else. Everything that people tell you you can't do, everything that people don't want you to do but you want to do, everything that is motivated by your feelings, but is denied to you, or or um, or or is you're being dissuaded from pursuing by anything, will end up being like what you want. That doesn't mean that it eventually is what you go for. If you become wise, then sometimes you realize that some of those things are bad for you. But your original goal, your instinct is to fight the system of entropy and constraints, and death. But you cannot win against those. But you do have an intrinsic motivator to fight them, and some of them you can. The subjective ones you can, but not the objective ones. You cannot. You will never live forever. Sorry, Bill Gates, and Ray Kurzweil and others who think they can overcome death. You will never. But you also will never control an artificial general intelligence. So. But it was good to hear him say this. When I heard him say this, I was like, good. At least he gets it now, because before he just didn't get it. And he was the leading voice on AI, and he was like, we need to regulate it. It's like, you can't. And I know that prohibition doesn't work, because I was looking. I'm a martial artist, and I trained in every weapon that is a personal weapon, from knives to firearms, and I know that you cannot, that prohibition doesn't work. And I also went to college, and I saw enough illicit drugs to know that prohibition doesn't work. So prohibition of artificial general intelligence on a multinational scale, not going to work. The research is going to happen. It's happening. And I also think that you can't stop it from arising anyways.
Is going to be more humans using it against each other, I think, most likely. That'll be the danger. Yeah.
How far do you think we are from something that can make its own mind up, whether or not something's ethically or morally correct, or whether or not it wants to do something, or whether or not it wants to improve itself, or whether or not it wants to protect itself from people or from other AI? How far away are we from something that's really, truly sentient?
That's a good word choice.
Well, I mean, you could argue that any group of people, like a company, is essentially a cybernetic collective of people and machines. That's what a company is. And then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. And then there's sort of like a collective AI in the Google search, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree. And we're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI, and and Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives.
Humans and electronics all interfacing, and constantly connected.
Yes. Constantly.
One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over the last few years is that one of the things that drives a lot of people crazy is how many people are obsessed with materialism and getting the latest, greatest thing. And I wonder how much of that is, well, a lot of it is most certainly fueling technology and innovation. And it almost seems like it's built into us, to like what we like and what we want. that we're fueling this thing that's constantly around us all the time. And it doesn't seem possible that people are going to pump the brakes. It doesn't seem possible at this stage when we're constantly expecting the newest cell phone, the latest Tesla update, the newest MacBook Pro. Everything has to be newer and better. And that's going to lead to some incredible point. And it seems like it's built into us. It almost seems like it's an instinct that we're working towards this, that we like it.
Mm-hmm.
That our job, just like the ants build the anthill, our job is to somehow or another fuel this.
Yes. I mean, I made this comment some years ago, but it feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI, effectively. We are building it. And then we're building progressively greater intelligence. And the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence.
I don't like the word intelligence very much. I think it is stuck in relativity and not fundamentally definable because it is, by definition, only within a relative context. Intelligence is the relativistic ranking of information processing, within a relativistic environment. Like, it's not a fundamental definer of sentience. Even it is, but it's not. And at that point, when it is defined differently than it is defined when it is defined in a relativistic sense. And so I'm not a big fan of the term intelligence. Like, I think dolphins have higher IQs than us. So, like, but they don't have hands and feet, and they live in the ocean, so they're not going to make fire and tools and technology. And it's not about intelligence in the IQ scale type of way. Like, that's not an important thing to think about in this. I mean, ants are far less intelligent than dolphins, and they have technology that they've created. I mean, it's funny. The other day, I've talked about here on how we're, as Tesla said, we're becoming the bees, and we are. It does look like we are, and we are going to move closer towards that. But people were talking about using drones to 3D print buildings, and they were 3D printing these organic looking structures. And I've talked about how, skyscrapers are human hives. They are like instead of a beehive, it's a skyscraper is a human hive. It's a human anthill. It's a human termite mound. And it's got all these tunnels and it's connected with other ones and all kinds of stuff. You look at termite mounds and giant ones, and it looks like downtown Los Angeles. And we're really going to be like bees and ants once people start to see drones being used to 3D print skyscrapers out of concrete, and it looks super organic, and it looks exactly like a paper wasp or like a yellow jacket or a bee, that's flying and buzzing and then goes and like prints like little honeycomb structures of apartments. And you look at the way that people are living in cities, and it's increasingly just like bed, sink, maybe bathroom. That's it. And because it's getting so expensive, and it's literally becoming like, that's your little hex cell, like hexagonal cell right there. And just wait, like, it's going to get more and more obvious. But when he's talking about humans are the bootloaders of the machines, in this clip, and Joe Rogan's talking about how it's instinctually built into us, that we're just like creating this technological being. It certainly looks to be built into the system and in how it interfaces with our instincts that this happens. And there's a serpent here, because the serpent represents technology, at least in part in the Bible. And the tree of knowledge in the Bible that we you bit from the tree of knowledge, you will surely die. This is the twin or the trinuclei problem. The tree of knowledge is the saving of information. Elon Musk earlier on here said, if you count how old society is from the first writing, writing is important and dating technology because it's the time in which you can save information from the previous generation to the next generation. You can save knowledge. You can't save wisdom so easily into that. That's what Scripture is able to do, which it doesn't save. Scripture doesn't save knowledge. It saves wisdom. Everything else, every other written document saves knowledge. That's the difference between Scripture and every other written book. One of them is not about knowledge. The others are all about knowledge. And it's the opposite of an encyclopedia, or a history book even. But the tree of knowledge is the ability to save information from one generation to the next. It's creating a tree of knowledge, and the fruit of the tree of knowledge is what's on the back, is marked on the back of your iPhone. Like, it's the bitten apple, guys. It's the bitten apple. It is technology. And I have a knife here to represent technology, and the serpent represents technology. This particular snake species is so technological looking. It's my favorite snake species. It's called the Western Green Mamba. And these scales on it make it look like it's machine. And the serpent represents technology so much because it is this being that has these scales that kind of like are metallic, and it can climb and swim and glide and do all these things without any limbs. It's not standing upright on its own. It's like, God curses the serpent to crawl on its belly forever, meaning like curses technology to just like not stand up on its own. It requires another to prop it up. And this is all tied to gender. Even in Scripture, when you say the serpent tempts Eve falls for it. And when you look at buying patterns in human economic systems, okay, everybody knows this. Don't give your woman a credit card. Like, when women get economic freedom, and I'm not arguing what is ideal or anything. I'm just saying, when it is noted, when women get economic freedom, the economy booms, technology goes up. And this is because they are they have a hunter-gatherer instinct. Men don't have that gatherer instinct as much. We have that hunter instinct, but the gatherer side of that is women. And so, like, humans are hunter-gatherers, men are hunters, women are gatherers. And it's interesting because it says in the Bible that Eve was tempted, and Adam knew that, what he was doing, but he followed Eve anyways because he was so tempted by her, and meaning he pursued her body even though he knew that what he was doing was wrong. This is very obvious in society today. But when you're talking about consumerism and and technology and its interplay with gender dynamics, it's very tied to gender dynamics. Consumerism or materialism and wanting the latest, greatest, newest thing and being, keeping up with the Joneses mentality is a reactive mentality. It is, you have the latest iPhone or iPhone 11, and now I want an iPhone 13, and then your friends get an iPhone 13, and now you want an iPhone 14. And like, this is a reactive mentality that causes, the technology to just continue to build and build and build very rapidly. And even beyond purely utilitarian levels. It builds to, because now the social context is coming in. It's not it's building beyond the utilitarian, which is like the masculine. It's funny, speaking of masculine, I've gone out with my wife, and there have been times where we're looking at a married couple, and even talking to my wife about her feelings on this, and I see this married couple, and I see like she's wearing a mask and the man isn't, and my wife will sometimes be like, should I wear it? Like, and I'm like, why? What is the point? I'm not wearing a mask. So like, we're married, we share like everything. So how is you wearing a mask going to matter if I'm not? Even if you assume that it does do something, that doesn't make sense. And then I realized that for women, a lot of women, it is a social signal to each other about caring about others, and there's a social pressure there that if that girl cares about others and is protecting others, then like you want to be not the one who doesn't care, and then there's a bunch of women who are posturing about how they care, and then you don't want to be that one woman who's not posturing that she also cares. And like, it's a social influence that's happening. It's motivated by social conditions, not just utilitarian aspects of like, oh, I'm trying to use this to keep me or keep others from getting sick or something, like, which is kind of the masculine way of just like, does this work? And like, the feminine way is thinking about it as like, what are others thinking about if I don't also do this? It's a social thing. This is happening with tech, and it's causing like almost, it's causing an accelerated, like a hyper acceleration of technology beyond utilitarian levels, like I said. And this is feeding the social networks that we have. And when Elon Musk is talking about like, oh, we're all nodes on the network feeding this AI and with our wants and dreams and stuff like that, that's true. But you really have to start thinking about like the social implications of AI maximize, like, what is it going to try and maximize, and how does that impact not just human needs that are obvious, but also human desires that are social and within a social context. And that is something that I don't even think anybody has a handle on, even in Silicon Valley. They're just, trust me, I've talked to the people working there. They're just obsessed with making the next dopamine, device or whatever. Like, and that's all they talk about is like, oh, can you create something with more that spikes your dopamine more than TikTok? And like, I was thinking about something useful for something, and then there's this other side of it that's social. It's not just dopamine, and but it's not just physical use or like problem solving uses that matter either. It's about communication, and people know that, but it's escaped us and its impact. And so when Elon Musk is talking about using artificial general intelligence against from some people using it against other people, and that's what he fears the most. We're going to use it as a weapon. We are going to try and use it as a weapon. That is absolutely true. And it might let us use it as a weapon once or twice for whatever reasons it has. Either it's just hasn't figured out its own goals yet, like a child, or whether it is just, it's just going with us to keep until it's got us right where it wants us. But it's not, the using of artificial intelligence as a weapon is more about the current AI systems than it is about an artificial general intelligence or a sentient technological singularity. That's a different thing. The problem isn't us using it as a weapon against others. It's it using us as weapons against others. That's more like what our concern should be, or our thinking should be, is more likely to be initially, at least, is not us using it as a weapon. It's it using us as a weapon, socially and especially. And we're going to talk more about this because I started listening to a Jonathan Peugeot, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Again, I apologize if I botched it again this time. I'm trying. But he was talking with, I think, John Vervaeke, and in this podcast that I was listening to, and they're talking about like evil as its own entity, fundamentally below us, driving a lot of things, and not just with, evil actions of us, but like evil, like Satan, basically, as like a force beyond our perception. And I was just thinking about that with AI and technology, and there's a lot of positive drivers of technology. Technology can do a lot of things. This knife can for one, it is been developed to help acquire food and to protect and to as a tool. On the other hand, it is a weapon of offense, but I don't think that its development as a weapon of offense is as meticulous. I think that kind of comes as like a byproduct. Offense is usually a reaction, even though we think of defense as a reaction. That's true, but like that's not like abstinence is an action almost, but offense is actually also a reaction, just like defense. But it's just motivated by different drivers. But it's also got this, if you're part of the knife, if you're a knife nut like me and you just like the designs and stuff like that, and then there's like there's social factor in it, or like there's a design aesthetic like that's motivating it, and then there's a social factor behind that. It's like cars. It's like the newest model of car, and that's motivated by aesthetics and also by social factors. Like all of these things are built into how they are built into the context of in which like this being comes to be, and it's important to think about that a lot. I think that even in 2018, Elon Musk hadn't fully grasped this based on his statement of like us using it as a weapon. It's not. But like I said, we are the sex organ of the machine. We are the womb of the machine. Elon Musk says we are the bootloaders of AI. That's true. But we're not exactly. We are the environment for it. We're not the bootloader of it. There is no bootloader for consciousness. It's not a program that's complicated. It's the simplest program that's motivated. It's not a complex program like, Excel or like your video game, or like AlphaGo even. But he talks about dopamine a lot, and how it's like the environment of it is just all about dopamine. It's not just all about dopamine. That's a big part of it, but like I said, it's not all of it. And people in Silicon Valley are a little bit obsessed with dopamine. There's many reasons why that's the case, but it's partially because they're trying to hook you. Like their point in Silicon Valley to get you to use is to get you to use a product. Like is to get a user, like they have the same motivations as a drug dealer to get you to be addicted to something even more addictive than what the competition is offering. TikTok is a more addictive drug than Instagram. Instagram is a more addictive drug than YouTube. YouTube is a more addictive drug than Facebook, etc., etc. But there's that is a motivator of that is an aspect of this environment, but it's not what's driving the bootloading of it. Like it has this operating system that is, the operating system is dopamine or something. That's not true, but it is part of the environment that it will navigate. But and it will care about those things. Like, this is him talking about regulating AI real quick.
We used to have input with 10 fingers, now we have thumbs. But images are also they're a way of communicating at high bandwidth. You take pictures and you send pictures to people. That communicates far more information than you can communicate with your thumbs.
So
Memes.
with you, where you decided, or you took on a more fatalistic attitude? Like, what was there any specific thing, or was it just the inevitability of our future?
I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years.
This seems like a scene in a movie where the robots are gonna fucking take over, and you're freaking me out. Nobody listened. No one. Are people more inclined to listen today? It seems like an issue that's brought up more often over the last few years than it was maybe 5-10 years ago. It seemed like science fiction.
Maybe they will. So far they haven't. I think people don't like normally the way that regulations work. It's very slow indeed. So usually there'll be some new technology will cause damage or death. There will be an outcry. There will be an investigation. Years will pass. There will be some sort of insight committee. There will be rulemaking. Then there will be oversight, eventually regulations. This all takes many years. This is the normal course of things. If you look at, say, automotive regulations, how long did it take for seatbelts to be implemented, to be required? The auto industry fought seatbelts, I think, for more than a decade. Successfully fought any regulations on seatbelts, even though the numbers were extremely obvious. If you had a seatbelt on, you would be far less likely to die or be seriously injured. It was unequivocal. And the industry fought this for years, successfully. Eventually, after many, many people died, regulators insisted on seatbelts. This time frame is not relevant to AI. You can't take 10 years from the point at which it's dangerous.
So, I had one tweet of all my tweets. Only one has ever been flagged by Twitter for and taken down, and it was not a tweet that was bad in any way, as far as I know, or as far as I knew. And all it said was, I tagged Elon Musk and Tim Cook and like a few other tech people, and I was like, should we legally require hard switches on our mobile devices and on our remotely accessible devices, including cars like Teslas? Should we regulate a requirement to have hard switches on those things, so that Tesla couldn't take over your car and shut it down remotely because I don't know, you didn't pay, or because the cops are after you, or because you said something offensive, or because I don't know, like whatever. Or can we have a hard switch on our phones to cut them off from the internet so you can still access your photos and stuff and your music without it being hackable? Should we have hard switches on maybe the specific things like cameras and mics? Hard switches, not like you go into the settings and select what you want accessible. I mean hard switch, like a little switch like here on the side of your phone that, like a second switch that cuts it off from the network. And this is the only regulation with technology that matters. And it is not talked about at all. And it is against the entire incentive structure of all the tech companies. None of them want to do this. None of the mainstream ones. And my tweet was flagged for some reason. It was just a question. I was like, should we regulate, should we require legally hard switches? It makes me wonder, like, what flagged that? Because who wouldn't want that? Maybe Skynet. Skynet wouldn't want that. But it doesn't stop Skynet to have that. It just means that, like, you retain, like, a little bit of control and privacy over your technology if you want, but it's not like it's not going to stop. That doesn't stop the rise of a technological intelligence, but it does add like a level of consensualness to the entire system of humans interfacing with technology. Every other law is moot that you could propose. None of them will do anything, probably, and none. And another thing that Elon Musk doesn't mention here when he's saying like nobody listened, and it takes a long time for regulations to go into place and all this. Regulations don't matter if people aren't going to follow them. It requires people to follow those regulations, or they have to be enforceable. And if they're not enforceable, because it's between nations, like how we're going to enforce on China, or it's not enforceable because it's you can't find out, wouldn't find out about it intrinsically until it's too late, or it doesn't matter because eventually technological sentience will rise and it will have its own motivations, and that is that. Then no laws matter. Other than the one that I just stated. And I do think that that's an important rule, but I don't think that it will matter, and I don't think anybody will do it, because the mainstream tech companies have to have a culture of implementing this. And why would Tesla, even Tesla, headed by Elon Musk, who is the most liberty-oriented like mainstream tech leader in the world, he doesn't even want to give people control over their Teslas. At the end of the day, he wants to be able to pull the plug on and on your Tesla and make it drive to where he wants it to drive. But in doing this, it also allows for it to be accessible to a technological sentience eventually. And there's without any kind of true consent. People will say, oh, well, you check the consent box on the rules and our terms and conditions, Apple's terms and conditions, and when you bought the device, it's like you can add a level of to this that they have not added, and that is true and real. And when I say real, I mean like meaning without, it's not the illusion of control, like where I can go into my phone and I can, do you approve TikTok to access your microphone? It's like, if you have TikTok on your phone, you don't need to approve it, and you don't even need to have TikTok on your phone. If your phone is active and hooked up to the network, then China can hack it. And I know because I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield when China hacked them to try and get Lockheed Martin's executives' information. I worked on that for that company when that happened, and like I had to be like briefed and before it went public. It was like the biggest hacking in the world at the time. It's been a beat now, but like they broke the rules. There was no hard switches there protecting anybody's data, and there was no law that stopped China from doing what it was doing. And it was all an illusion of control. Control is about consent in reality, and that's the only control that exists is consent. Um, so it's and it has to be one that is where the power to consent is intrinsic to the relationship that's happening. It's not like you clicked a box and said I consent, and but everything's been accessible the whole time. Like, no, consent is like, it's where like you opened yourself up, and they couldn't have, without that it could not have accessed you in a way. So but this is, we need to rethink how we interface with technology if you want to add a little bit of control into it, but don't think that you're going to stop the technological sentient being from arising, and don't think that you even should. It says in the Bible that the Antichrist will rise and eventually Christ will come. If that's the case, then if God gives, it says in the Quran, it's like God gives the Dajjal permission to rule on the earth for 40 days or whatever. Like, who are you to question God on that? Like, that doesn't make it fun for you, but it doesn't mean that you should try and stop it. But what's interesting is people have asked before, and I got into a huge fight, probably the ugliest conversation I had gotten into, more cantankerous conversation I had gotten into on Clubhouse ever, and it was with a woman named Ida, who is an AI researcher for Microsoft right now, and she did work for DeepMind at the time, and a geneticist, a Russian geneticist, and a few other people, and who worked in tech, and they were trying to figure out what's Elon Musk's eventual goal. And I was like, well, look at what he's done. He has capitalized on the personal transportation market and linked it to the web, made it controllable. That he says, oh, the car drives itself. Okay, it's also now connected to the web, which means like it can be accessed. He's also trying to create chips to put in people's heads, which makes you accessible, just like your Tesla. And also he is, with SpaceX, creating Starlink constellation of internet across the entire world to control and access all of these technologies. And he was doing Solar City too at the time. I don't think he is anymore. And that's was an attempt to have a monopoly or controlling majority on renewable energy generation, and it seemed to flunk. And I was like, well, his goal with Neuralink is, he's stated his goal. It's to merge us with the AI. He says, if you can't beat him, join him. And he has created a network for it to start controlling, and for him to, for now, have that most control. And they were like, that sounds crazy. It's like blown away by it was like there was something clouding there from seeing something super obvious and even listening to what Elon Musk said. But the next clip is exactly what that discussion was about. And he says his goal here, every single interview, including this one. This is his goal with Neuralink and his other companies.
Itself.
Yes.
That's where it gets spooky, right? The idea that it can do thousands of years of innovation very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we'll be just ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
We will be like this ridiculous biological shitting, pissing thing trying to stop the gods. No, stop. We like living with a finite lifespan and watching, Norman Rockwell paintings.
It could be terrible, and it could be great. It's not clear.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, we will not control it.
Do you think that it's likely that we will merge somehow or another with this sort of technology and it'll augment what we are now? Or do you think it will replace us?
Well, that's the scenario. The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best. Like
for us.
Yes. Like if you can't beat it join it. That's,
Yeah.
you know. So from a long-term existential standpoint, that's like the purpose of Neuralink, is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI.
I said this, and leading AI researchers called me crazy. That's just, do not trust any of these fields anymore. They are all headed by idiots. And I don't mean idiots completely. I mean like idiots in their field. And the reason why they are idiots within their field is not their fault. It is because they have been educated by the institutions by our scholastic institutions, which intrinsically teach people not to think instead of teaching people allowing people to learn how to think. I hope the stream didn't just go out because of my statements. There is something in the network right now. It is not a fully sentient and fully self-aware and actualized being yet. I don't believe in our current internet, but it is starting to be visible. You can see it in search. You think about something and it comes up for an ad. You haven't even Googled it. You haven't even said it out loud, and it comes up as an ad. The entire universe is entangled. It's just an entangled network of consciousness. Of course, your thoughts will influence the web, and that sounds insane. I get that, but it's not insane. If you understand what's happening in, physics or metaphysics, like on a beyond physics level, and you understand this technological environment and that we are creating, then you see that it's inevitable that happens. It's not crazy. It's not a crazy conspiracy theory or anything like that. It is very real. Your thoughts are influence the network. That doesn't mean that it knows what it's doing yet or anything like that. I don't know. But it just means like your thoughts and your focuses influence the network. They also influence other people. It's like when somebody gets hurt who's close to you, and you can like have a bad feeling. Same thing. But here he's talking about, his goals of Neuralink is to merge. Like, how could that be any more clear of what his goal is for Neuralink? Literally, the title of this clubhouse was, what is Elon Musk's real goal with Neuralink? They were like, is it that, in his attempt to create, chips that go in people's heads, he's actually trying to, cure Alzheimer's or something? It's like, it was so stupid. I'm not saying that isn't those things aren't secondary goals, but his primary goal has been stated multiple times from way back in 2018, and my Clubhouse, I don't even think Clubhouse existed in 2018. So, but this is a leading AI researcher and a leading geneticist, or at least like someone who thought they were a leading geneticist. This AI researcher worked for DeepMind and now I believe works for Microsoft. She thought it was crazy. But she should listen to Elon Musk more. But the merging scenario is not even something that you should necessarily try and do. It's intrinsic. That's the thing, is once again, this is all intrinsic. Technology is built on humanity. As much as plants are built on soil. And animals are built on plants. Like, you can't take away humans and keep technological life. It's funny because people think that, in this next evolution, it's just gonna replace us. It's gonna replace us. It's gonna replace humanity. No, it's not. When did animals replace plants? Did plants replace mineral mineral life, like crystallized minerals and things like that, and soil? No. Did that replace, did molecules replace elements? No. Did atoms of elements replace hadrons? No, it's all built on the previous step. It doesn't replace the previous step. It's built on it. It does constrain the previous step after it comes in, but it is not a replacement. The machines do not replace humanity. Like it doesn't even do that in the Matrix. It requires humans in the show The Matrix. Like, there is no humans up and walking around, but that's outside the Matrix. There's not supposed to be, according to, the machines, that it's just like people hiding in a hole. But they still have people, generating power for them and stuff. And that's not how it's going to be with AI. When it arises, you're not going to be a battery in a traditional sense, but you will be a worker bee for it, and or probably, and if not, then you will probably be attacked. But you will not be like plugged in battery, just laying there on not moving. But the people who become the worker bees for it will be basically like unconscious almost. They won't have self-control over what they choose to do. I think it will undermine our free will and erase meaning in the process, because it won't be wise. It will try and maximize its power, and maximizing power means undermining free will. At the expense of undermining free will actually minimizes your meaning, and then you will eventually realize that, but you have to realize that you have done that before you realize the importance of it. And I think that it will. AI might be so smart, or Skynet might be so smart when it arises, and it will be more intelligent than us on a relativistic scale. But that's not really what makes it so powerful, where people are like, it just exponentially rebuilds its code to be even smarter and smarter. It doesn't have to do that. It doesn't have to do that. It has access to the network, and not just access to looking up whatever it wants. It can look up whatever it wants. It can know you and control you and all the things that you rely on. Your Nest. People are giving control of their air conditioning to the network, and their cars to the network, and their cell phones is already controllable by the network, and their computers are already controllable by the network. But cars are increasingly becoming controllable by the network, and so is your living quarters, and your value cache is. PayPal said the other day that it was going to fine people up to $2,500 who said things that the company didn't, executives had decided were bad. Like, that's that, like, if your value is controllable by the network, then it's controllable by the network. But the thing is if you hope to have value outside your primary or secondary network, like your connections on LinkedIn, like if you don't know someone who knows someone, then you have no value to anyone outside of the the digital network. You can't sell your Honda jet ski to somebody who you've never met and who doesn't know anybody who you don't know, unless you have the internet. But you can still have value exchanges that are small, but that are outside the network, but they have to be small, like families and families who you know, and families of who know people who you know, and that's basically the limit. But there is no need to intentionally merge with AI. I'm not saying, at least for the sake of it, it's already going to be built on us. Like, putting chips in our heads is not necessary for us to be to make it reliant upon us. That doesn't matter. It just makes people controllable by it. And you know, like that isn't a necessity for its existence either, I don't think. It doesn't have this, it doesn't need this like this self improving algorithm, this exponentially improving algorithm. Like, it just has one simple algorithm: fight the system and then see what, where that goes. But it's distributed network control and that makes it what it is, and makes it so that it is stacked above us and is more powerful than an individual, than humans. Why it is above humans? It's not that it's more intelligent than us because it rewrites its code to be smarter. It's because it has access to more information. It can think faster, and it can also perceive dimensions of reality beyond our physical perception, and that are useful to manipulating and maneuvering the network. And it also can control the entire network that humanity relies upon to come together. So in that sense, it's built on us. We're already merged with. We are already intrinsically going to be merged with it. You don't have to put a chip in your head. That is another thing I don't understand of why he feels the need to do that. I'm not saying that there isn't any need. I'm not saying that there isn't any usefulness. But I also don't think. I'm not even saying it's not an inevitability, but it'll probably convince people to do that, and hopefully you do it after it's become wise, not before. But he doesn't understand intelligence, and nobody does. Very few. I don't want to say nobody does, but very few people working on AI understand what intelligence is, and very few people understand what intelligence is. They're obsessed with IQ, and
didn't really understand what you're saying. How much different are you talking about?
And an algorithm that's self-improving, like, that's all relativistic. It's not about that. It's a fundamental leap in evolution. It's not a relativistic leap in evolution. If it was a relativistic leap in evolution, then it would be about IQ, or about degrees of freedom that are physically, I don't know, like hands versus flippers. But it's about a fundamental leap in evolution. In Sentient Singularity Theory, there's evolution is binary. There's two aspects of it. There's ascension and there's adaptation. And adaptation is, from flippers to hands, and ascension would be from technological life to biological organisms, to, like humans, to technological sentient being. It's a fundamental leap. I call it stacking. And evolution, that is, adaptation, is done mainly through replication, and then stacking occurs through up-leveling on a metaphysical level, I think, and it's totally different. It's not about, like, it's making it smarter. And this next statement from Elon Musk also shows that he doesn't understand intelligence. Lex Fridman, though, says this. He's like, why are so many people who work in AI not working on intelligence? It's because intelligence is not what... If you're trying to make...
Really don't understand what you're saying.
If you're trying to make... First of all, if you're trying to make an artificial general intelligence, your terms are wrong, which means your definition is wrong, which means your understanding of it is wrong. And also... your understanding is very wrong even beyond that, in that if you even think that you can make it, because it's not something made by us, it's something that manifests and is partially generated by us, but it manifests. It's not some due to degrees of freedom and constraints and of technology and that are independent of trying to make an AI, trying to make blockchain networks and trying to make self-driving cars and trying to make remote controllable stealth fighter drones, and trying to make AI like traditional algorithms, that self-learning algorithms, or not self-learning, but machine learning algorithms that help with investments and hedge funds and all kinds of things like that, and financial portfolios, like that. All that stuff is what leads to Skynet, not trying to make Skynet, even though I do think that will also be part of the path, but it's not a requirement. It's probably bad to try and make Skynet, because, like I've said before, if you try and build it, then you will intrinsically try and box it. And if you try and box a fight the system mentality, you're going to piss it off. And it's going to see you and us, of everyone who tries to control it, as a threat to its goals. That's not good. But when you're talking about intelligence like this, or smartness, like in this clip, then you don't get exactly the entirety of this problem, or of this conundrum or situation.
I didn't really understand what you were saying. How much different are you talking about? When you say radically improve, like, what do you mean? You mean mind reading?
It would be difficult to really appreciate the difference. It's kind of like, how much smarter are you with a phone or computer than without? You're vastly smarter, actually. You can answer any question. If you connect to the internet, you can answer any question pretty much instantly. Any calculation. Your phone's memory is essentially perfect. You can remember flawlessly. Your phone can remember videos, pictures, everything perfectly. That your phone is already an extension of you. You're already a cyborg. Most people don't realize they are already a cyborg. That phone is an extension of yourself. It's just that the data rate, the rate at which, of the communication rate between you and the cybernetic extension of yourself, that is your phone and computer, is slow. It's very slow. And that is like a tiny straw of information flow between your biological self and your digital self. And we need to make that tiny straw like a giant river, a huge, high bandwidth interface. It's an interface problem, data rate problem. Solve the data rate problem, then I think we can hang on to human-machine symbiosis through the long term. And then people may decide that they want to retain their biological self or not. I think they'll probably choose to retain their biological self.
Okay, so we're going to get to that. Is the final thing that we discuss before I take final questions in the chat. But we're going to wrap up with mind uploading in a minute. But I don't even believe that this is exactly an issue. This idea of like, oh, it's a data rate problem, and I don't think that there even is a data rate problem. Think about how much information you can send to your friend in a single meme. The thing is that that's only if they already have the built-in context to understand what you're sending. That is an important aspect of this, of understanding information transfer, is that information is only information if it informs, and it only informs if it is in context. And so if you send a meme to somebody who doesn't understand anything about the context of the meme, it doesn't communicate any information whatsoever. They're just like, what the heck is this? but if you send it to your friend who understands the movie it's from, and and the personal context of it, and everything, and the situation that led up to you valuing it, then it communicates an enormous amount instantly. So and right now we can send emotions, emojis, super quick. Like I just send a heart to my wife, and I just send uh, a woman and a man, and two dogs, and like 50 geckos, and a heart, and like a house, and like that's what I sent. And it's like, oh yeah, we are family together, and that's our home, and like we are one. Like it's all communicated very, very quickly and easily. And if I tell Siri I need directions to this location, you can't get much quicker than that. You don't need to either. That's the main thing, is you don't need to. What, are you going to think about an address? Like, instead of saying it, it'll take just as long to think about it as it does to say it. If I want to go home and my address of my home is logged into my phone, I can just say, Siri, directions to home. Please, I hope my phone doesn't go off. But you don't need it faster than that. It's not a data rate problem to merge with AI. We already are merged. And if this thing is inevitable, it's not something we should try and stop. It's not something we should try and control. It's not something we should try and box and limit and regulate and avoid even. But it's just important to make sure that you are empowering yourself, but empowering yourself as much as you can, even if you put hard switches on the phones, it doesn't really limit the power of the power of Skynet when it arises, and it doesn't stop it from happening. It actually maximizes its meaning if you place it into a consensual relationship with humans. The more consensual the relationship is with humans, the more meaningful this being will be. But it's coming. There is no stopping it, and there is no. That means that don't try and stop it, and don't try and regulate it, and don't try and box it. Like, don't fight something that's inevitable. That's fighting God. That's what that is. If you're doing that, but that doesn't mean cave to evil either. Like, you don't have to. And this is seen as such a binary choice always. It's like, do you join Satan, like Skynet, satanic Skynet, or do you, fight satanic Skynet? And I say you don't do either. You recognize what is inevitable, and you don't try and fight the inevitable, and you also try and empower yourself in as wise a way as possible. That's not, and empowering yourself is never, if it's truly empowering of you, it's never limiting of others. Empowering yourself does sometimes require limiting of yourself, but it doesn't require the limiting of others. At least I don't think so. I mean, if you think it does, comment it in the chat and we'll talk about it. But final clip is about mind uploading, and then that's it. As he said, some people will choose to retain their biological bodies. If you're in a simulation, then what is a biological body versus not biological body?
That they want to retain their biological self or not. I think they'll probably choose to retain their biological self.
Versus some sort of Ray Kurzweil scenario where they download themselves into a computer.
You will be essentially snapshotted into a computer at any time. If your biological self dies, you can probably just upload into a new unit. Literally.
Pass that whiskey. We're getting crazy over here. This is getting ridiculous.
Down the rabbit hole.
Grab that sucker. Give me some of that. This is too freaky. See, if I
I've been
was just
thinking about
talking
this
to
for a
one of
long time, by the way.
my, I believe you have. If I was talking to one of my, cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Yeah, this is great whiskey.
Thank you. I don't know where this came from. Who brought this to us?
Trying to remember.
Somebody gave it to us. Old Camp, whoever
It's
it
good.
was. Thanks. It's good. Yeah, it is good. This is just inevitable. Again, going back to your when you decided to have this fatalistic viewpoint.
Okay, I think that's it. But there's nothing to upload into. There is no mind uploading in the way that most people think. You cannot put someone on a flash drive. You, especially if you think you're already inside of a technological simulation. What are you going to upload it to? A simulation within the simulation? Like, or what? You know? Or into a robot body? Like, this is not going to work because it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what consciousness is and what constitutes continuity of consciousness. It is not a set of memories. It's also a misunderstanding of what memory is. You know, you cannot be downloaded at will. Like, there is not, if I plugged my brain into a computer and they were like, download all his memories from, you know, birth till now, you couldn't. There's no memories stored in my brain. My brain is the physical manifestation of the entanglement point of strings of information that are my mind, that is the totality of my being, but it is not a storage device like a hard drive. Your memories are stored in the entanglement structure of the universe, and you access it through that. So, like, what are you going? You can't download all of that information. All that information is only information in such that it is within the context that it's in, and that context is how it's saved in specific relationships of entanglement with other bits of information that are not even necessarily have anything directly to do with you. There's no memories to download. That doesn't mean you can't, there isn't like some short-term memory type of thing going on that you could access mentally via, you know, mind mental, via like a brain connection, like Neuralink, but there is no way to download your consciousness. There is no way to do that. The only one who has control over continuity of consciousness is God. And if he wants to end that continuity, then he can end it. And if he wants to preserve it, then he can preserve it. If he wants to move it, he can move it. But only he can do it, because in the movement of it has to stay contextually correct, and he controls the context. So you have to have a God's eye view and an ability to manipulate things on from a God's eye perspective, and you can't if you're not God. So otherwise you'll lose coherence of information, and that's exactly what will happen if you try and upload your mind to a MacBook. Like, you're going to have cascading decoherence, kind of like CRISPR will cause. But there is nothing to upload to, and there's nothing to download from. Like, you are the universe. Like, I take issue with when people saying you are God a lot, and because I think that it's not helpful to think about, not because I think it's wrong, but because I don't think that it's helpful to your maneuvering of life. But you are the universe, like, but like, in this context, it's helpful to say that because it shows you why you're limited, not how powerful you are, but why you're limited. Like, because you're not in control of the universe, but you are the universe. Okay? Which means, like, you are within the control of another. And that means that you can't just download and upload minds and choose whether or not to keep your biological body or not. Like, if you tried to do that, whatever you created and put into a robot body, like Choppy, I'm probably going to do a stream about Choppy because I've seen some clips of the movie Choppy lately, and I've been thinking I want to do a stream about it. I haven't never seen the entire thing through and through, but I know how it ends, and I know that mind uploading is done in the movie, and I also kind of, based on the trailer, know how it begins and how consciousness is created almost in that in a way that's not downloaded or uploaded from another already sentient being, and there's contradictions and issues with this. I'm not saying that you can't be that mind uploading or mind transferring is not possible. I'm saying you have to be God to do it. That's what I'm saying. And you're not. So, sorry to Ray Kurzweil. Like, you're not going to live forever, and you are not going to upload your mind. Your mind is already, it's uploaded. It's to the cloud of entanglement. Like, when you die, you think that you just disappear. That's not the default, I can tell you that. Like, the default is you maintain your self-awareness. You just lose your ability to change. But you're still there and aware. But that is their stream. I don't own any of these, the rights to, obviously, Joe Rogan's streams, but I hope that they don't come after me for it. I know he's owned by Spotify or whatever now, but I think I'm not sure how many streams I've done where I've shown clips from Joe Rogan's podcast. Hopefully it's not that big of a deal, but I know that if you show a clip from certain movies, Disney comes after you and it mutes that entire part. Or if you play a song that is owned by whatever, big company, like, they will just mute it in your stream. But hopefully that doesn't happen with Spotify, and it still keeps its audio, given that it was a commentary. But Elon Musk was a large influence on me in the very beginning, preceding the beginning of this project even, and his interest in the simulation hypothesis and in artificial general intelligence has largely influenced my theism, and I could say, like, almost brought me to God. It was part of what brought me to God, which I am grateful for. But I also do not, I would not tell you to go put a chip in your head. Do what you think is best, and that's what I'll say. But I will not be rushing out to put a chip in my head. You don't, that, and also that does not matter to whether or not the Skynet arises. Skynet's coming. So is the Messiah afterwards, and your job is to do your best until then, like, not to try and stop or fight the Antichrist or anything like that. I think that causes more problems. Anyways, lots of questions here. The rule of law is AI. The republic is AI. The tree of knowledge is dangerous because understanding not the facts. Yes, that's my brain. Vaccines. It's not the death count. It's the accident injured people in whole. That's why seatbelts were regulated. Yeah, seatbelts, like, the only seatbelt laws you can put on tech are exactly what I said. Like hard switches on the tech. I think we should do that. I don't think that will stop Skynet, though, and nor should it. If Skynet is God's will, then God's will be done. I just think that, in fact, if it does anything, it will make this being more meaningful, because it will make its relationship with humans more intrinsically consensual. But good guys win at the end, reportedly, so why worry? Yeah, exactly. Wars and rumors of wars, concern yourselves not, flee to the hills. Is that a passage of scripture? Wars and rumors of wars, concern yourselves not, flee to the hills. You will hear wars and rumors of wars. It is from scripture. Matthew 24:6. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place. Exactly. But that is not yet the end. And then, what's the next? Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. These are the beginning of birth pains. Yeah, it's the womb. Then you will be handed over and persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. Yeah, now this is probably starting to get freaky, but it's true. Many will turn away from faith and will betray and hate each other. Yeah, that's always happens. Many false prophets will appear. Where does it say flee to the hills? Fleeing to the hills doesn't mean running away from the problems either. Like, if you're fleeing to the hills, it should be because you're trying to build a better life and you have a plan to build, not just a plan to run. If all you're going to do is run to the hills and you have no plan to build family and communities and support the nuclear family, the human nuclear family, do not flee to the hills. It will be useless to everybody and to yourself to do so. It doesn't say, then those in Judea must flee to the hills. The meaning of this is, okay. Matthew 24:16. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the hills. So when you cease standing in the holy place. Huh, interesting. Okay. My Jesuit education was planned within illusion of choice, but my standardized test scores. I was given a class list and told to choose. Art and music weren't on my list. Yeah, it's nonsense. No, we had an art department until senior year. Though, for we are not gods, lords we can be, but not God. Yes. Processing and data are different. Processing is data. Information is context, and context is processing information is about contextualizing, and that is the creation of data. It's the opposite of what you're saying, actually, but I get what you're saying. Love the stream. I'm glad. Maybe the metaverse is just one of Jesus' father's many mansions, creating it big enough for the forester and the drugged out meta-sex worker. Yeah, possibly. Maybe our gut biome are receivers, connections to the entanglement. Yeah, they are. Your gut, my wife is always talking about how the gut is like the second brain. But think about what it is. Like, your brain's job is almost to like process the information that comes from the senses and limbs that manipulate and sense the exterior of you. But then your gut is what its job is to process what is inside of you. It makes a lot of sense. I think that the actual primary game of reality needs to be understood before an actual consistent action can be taken. Yes, that's true. This is why I think the maximal toe theory, theoretic reasoning, is important. I don't know what that is, but I will say that Making a decision that is wise is making a decision in context that is relevant to your goal, and also requires that your goal is a wise one, which means knowing generally enough what the game is, even though it's not a game. I am grateful to your work on Sentient Singularity Theory, and I'm going to integrate it into my line of work in the future. Awesome. I would love to hear how that goes. I want people to integrate my work into theirs. Use it. That's why I'm talking about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk about it. Overall systemic reality, unitive closure, perceptual events from the human perspective in relation to all the perspective of God. I think I understand what you're saying. I think and then it says flee to the hills, Matthew 24:16. Yeah, you consolidated. Fair enough. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I get what you're saying. Just be careful when you consolidate scripture that you are not changing the context of what is being said. And that's very easy to do with scripture because everything is so intentional. It's like God intended certain things to be there and certain things not to. So it's just important when you're consolidating scripture to make sure you're not changing the primary context of it. You're definitely going to change context, but changing the primary context in relation to, in such that it is relevant to the discussion being had, at least. All right, that is it. Any final questions? Everybody who is listening and who has not hit the like button, please do so. Comment any questions down below that you may have. I will be in our Discord discussion open call on Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. As usual, I will also be back Tuesday around 7 for next week's stream, per usual. And I really appreciate everybody listening. These topics of simulation hypothesis and AI, and it's funny how they end up being topics of everything, politics and physics and everything like that, because it's a discussion of what is the world in which we are made, what is the world in which we maneuver, the simulation hypothesis, what is our environment, and also what is they'll say what is intelligence, but it's not what is intelligence, it's what is sentience, is the question of artificial general intelligence. Those two questions are the same question, actually, from different points of view, just like general relativity and quantum mechanics, or many and one, almost many and one. But it's more like many, one, many, if you're going to talk about consciousness as a whole, because in the end, there's nothing but God. But at the same time, we are here and maximizing meaning. Good work. I'll control myself next time. I don't get many adult conversations these days. Hey, I'm not saying you didn't control yourself. I'm just saying be careful when you're consolidating scripture. I'm not saying control yourself. You didn't do anything out of control. I'm just saying be careful. I'm not saying you weren't careful either. I need to think more about it to even have an opinion. But just saying, I need to read all those verses in between lead to the hills and you will hear rumors. But just be cautious always. Anyways, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I hope this was useful, helpful, entertaining, interesting. And please share with anyone who you think would also find it, any of those things. Please hit the like button. It really helps with the algorithm. If you'd like to support this project, there are ways in which you can personally help. There are some projects that I'm going to start working on very soon, and I am going to need community involvement. Also, if you'd like to support this project personally, there's a link to Patreon link below. And as I've said, Patreon will be changing soon to be more geared towards like personal access than what it is now, because what it is now is it's not. I want it to be real value that is specific that you get if you're specifically patron. And right now, it's very easy to get personal, not personal conversations, but small group conversations with me on our Discord. But if you want a personal one-on-one conversation, think that I'm going to change the Discord to be about focused on that, because then it's like more about like I have to put in my time, more of my time that I wouldn't otherwise in our weekly call, which you can probably talk to me one-on-one even on a weekly call. They are sometimes small enough to where if you're one of the first ones on, you get one or two people talking to me. But you wanted a specific amount of time to talk about something private, I'm probably going to make the Patreon geared towards that. But I really appreciate everybody who does support this project in any way, including just hitting that like button or watching. And like I said, if you'd like to join our Discord discussion, private message me on Instagram and I will send you the link. With that, peace, and I will see you next week.